Imagine waking up covered in dust, with your back aching, and the first thing you feel is thirst. But there's no water, just sun. Good evening. Before you close your eyes, let me take you to a place where even the gods wake up in a bad mood. Forget perfect pyramids, golden pharaohs, and those cheerful little mummy movie soundtracks. Tonight, you're going to find out what it was really like to live in ancient Egypt. But first, if historical misery helps you drift off to sleep, go ahead and hit like and subscribe to the channel. But only if you truly want more nights like this. Alright then. Tonight, you're not a pharaoh, not a scribe, not a priest. You're a peasant. No rights, no rest. And if you're lucky, an old piece of bread in your pocket and no scorpion in your sandal. So fluff up your pillow. And let's find out why you wouldn't survive a single day in the skin of an Egyptian peasant. You wake up feeling like the ground itself is trying to digest you. Your bed, a pile of straw, dry grass, and the sad leftovers of wild creatures that saw better days. Maybe it once housed a mouse, or 10, you've stopped counting. Light pours in through the only opening in your house, a poorly aligned hole they call a window. No glass, no curtain, no privacy. The sun is already out there, boiling like a curse cast by Ra himself. You try to stretch. Bad idea. Your back cracks like it's made of sun-dried clay. Sleeping on Egyptian dirt isn't just uncomfortable. It's a spiritual experience in involuntary humility. You hear the neighbor's ox mooing, and your mother-in-law too. She's yelling that the chicken escaped again, or that you're useless. Could be both. The house is made of sun-baked mud bricks, cracked, unstable, smelling like ancient dust and fresh smoke. The roof? A chaotic blend of sticks and hope, shielding you partially from sandstorms and entirely from fresh air. Your tunic, or what's left of it, is soaked in yesterday's sweat. You haven't taken it off. You won't. Clothes are expensive, the day is hot, and washing is basically a ritual involving the Nile, hours of scrubbing, and a personal protective deity. There's no bathroom, just a bucket, and a bush outside. But the bush is also home to snakes, scorpions, and that neighbor kid who thinks scaring you is the funniest thing on earth. You scratch your head. Lice. Again. Maybe they like you. Maybe you're their vacation resort. And then it hits you. Another day begins. And it's going to be just like all the others. You have to work. You have to survive. You have to carry stone blocks heavier than your self-esteem. But first, you have to pretend that crusty piece of bread in the corner is breakfast. Your name? Doesn't matter. You're not making history. You don't build pyramids for glory. You build them because you don't have a choice. And outside, the overseer's already shouting names, or insults. In Egyptian, it's hard to tell the difference. The sun rises, you fall, down the hierarchy, again. And all of this, before you even brush your teeth with charcoal and sand. You decide it's time to clean yourself up. Clean is a strong word here. A more accurate phrase would be, do what you can with what you've got. You grab a clay jar filled with Nile water, stored since yesterday. The makeshift lid, a piece of fabric hardened by time, pops off with a crack and releases a smell that defies description. Not exactly rotten, more like ancient. The water is warm, murky, and teeming with more life than you'd like. Tiny bugs swim around with enthusiasm, and you think, if they're alive, maybe I'll survive too. You splash your face. It's refreshing, in the same way getting slapped out of nowhere is refreshing. You rub your eyes. They sting, maybe from the dust, maybe from the floating filth, maybe from the gods watching and having a laugh. To brush your teeth, you grab a dry twig, a rough version of a miswak, and dip it into a homemade paste made of ash, salt, and crushed pumice stone. Yes, you're technically cleaning your teeth with rock. You scrub. You feel the gritty sand scratching your enamel. Your gums bleed a little. But bleeding is normal. Too much blood? That just means it's really clean. Or so your uncle says. Your breath? a rich blend of sour beer and dried garlic. Still better than your brother-in-law's, who thinks bathing is a myth. A full body bath? Only for religious festivals, or if you're possessed, or dead. Today's bath involves animal fat mixed with mashed herbs. You rub the slimy mixture under your arms and behind your neck. It attracts flies, but it repels the scent of despair. Your hair is a tangled battlefield. You don't comb it, you negotiate with it. Maybe you'll shape it with a bit of clay. Maybe you'll shave it off again, like many do, to beat the lice and the heat. A bald head is cooler than any bath. And your clothes? The same tunic from yesterday, and the day before, and every memory you have. It's linen, now stiff in spots from layers of dried sweat. You give it a shake to see if anything falls out. A scarab hits the ground. It looks at you. You apologize. You slip on a necklace made of clay beads. It's pretty. It's symbolic. It's useless against the smell. But looking respectable matters, because today might be a temple day, or a stone hauling day, or a try not to die day. All three require you to be in your best state of acceptable decay. There, you're clean. By ancient Egyptian standards. By 21st century standards, you'd be shut down by public health. Your stomach growls. It's time to eat. Or at least, try to convince yourself that what you're about to put in your mouth qualifies as food. In a dark corner of the house, covered with a stiff, worn-out cloth, lies your sustenance, bread. But not just any bread. This bread was made with barley flour, roughly ground between primitive stones, which means it proudly comes loaded with sand particles and tiny bits of rock. You're chewing nutrition and erosion at the same time. No yeast, just time, heat, and resignation. The result? A dense mass, hard as a stone tablet. It breaks, but not easily. It challenges your teeth, your patience, and every life decision you've ever made. No butter, no jam, no fresh cheese. Dairy is for the wealthy, or for the cows, whose milk is so scarce it goes straight to the temples, the priests, or spoils before it ever reaches your village. You eat in silence, staring at the wall. A wall that arguably has more protein than the bread. The only drink available? Beer. Yes, beer, in the morning. But before you picture a cold glass with golden foam, let's set the record straight. This is a thin, cloudy, almost mushy brew, made from fermented grains, warm water, and maybe a drowned insect or two. It's basically liquid porridge, rich in calories, poor in taste, and faintly fizzy. The kids drink it too. Actually, they love it, because it's either that, or Nile water with a surprise parasite. You take a sip, close your eyes. Your throat protests, but your stomach, in its own desperate way, thanks you. Next to you, a raw onion, small, dried out, spicier than useful. That's dessert. The smell of the onion seeps into your pores. You'll spend the day with the breath of an ancient curse. You've seen priests eat dates, dried meat, even fish. But you're a peasant. Your breakfast is a reminder that the top of the pyramid wasn't built for people like you. The closest you ever get to a pharaoh is in your dreams. And even there, he's got bodyguards. You finish your meal with more crumbs on your clothes than bread in your belly. And then, a small moment of relief. You've survived breakfast. Now it's time to work. Because in ancient Egypt, bread comes before pain, and pain lasts the rest of the day. The sky is clear. Not a cloud in sight. In Egypt, that's just another way of saying, get ready to melt. You strap on your crude sandals, rough leather thongs tied to soles made of straw, offering absolutely no protection. They'll crack, slip, and heat up like part of some divine punishment ritual. But they're still better than going barefoot. Barely. The road to the work site is a dry trail, marked by ox tracks, cart ruts, and, occasionally, the femur of a less fortunate worker. You head to one of the labor fronts along the Nile. If you're lucky, and you're not, you'd be assigned to farm work. But today is a construction day. The construction, the one everyone calls the Great Project. A towering structure that defies the sky, logic, and your spine. Some say it's a temple, others, a tomb, or maybe a palace. No one really knows, but everyone knows it isn't building itself. You arrive. The overseer, a man with a rough voice and a light whip, is already shouting names. Those who don't answer are assumed dead or lazy, and in either case, the punishment is the same. You grab your rope, made from braided fiber, tie it around a block of limestone that weighs more than your house. With 7 other men, all just as exhausted as you begin to pull. The stone doesn't want to move, but the ground does. It sinks, cracks, gives way. Sweat runs down your arms, your back, your chin. The heat has passed, uncomfortable, and entered the realm of existential mirage. The block moves, 2 meters, then stops. You take a deep breath and hear a crack, not from the stone, from your spine. A break comes. 30 seconds, just enough time to sip warm beer from a filthy jar. You look at the jar. It looks back. There's something alive in there. You drink it anyway. The hunger returns. But food won't come until midday. Half a dozen scraps of old bread, a raw onion, and maybe, just maybe, some dried meat if someone in the village died and left behind an animal. You keep pulling. Some days you dig irrigation canals. Other days you pound mud into bricks. And when luck abandons you, you haul animal dung to fertilize the fields. But today is Stone Day, the overseer yells. Someone has fallen. The men stop. Watch, no one moves. The injured is dragged into the shade, gets a sip of beer and, if fortune smiles, a bandage made of dirty linen. You know there are no doctors here, only healers, armed with salves made of honey, onions, and desperate prayers. And if someone dies on the job, they're wrapped in cloth, laid near the Nile, and the pulling continues, because the stone must go on. At the top of the social pyramid stands the pharaoh. Below him, scribes, priests, nobles, merchants, soldiers. You're at the bottom, below the ox, above, maybe, the fly, maybe. The work only ends when the sun begins to fall, not because someone wants you to rest, but because the overseer wants to go home. You drop your tools, your fingers ache, your feet bleed, and your soul? Somewhere in the blisters. But you survived. One more day of building, one day closer to eternity, underground. The shift is over. Or rather, the sun showed mercy. You walk home with trembling legs and screaming shoulders. But one thing never leaves you: the heat. In ancient Egypt, the sun isn't just a star. It's a celestial overseer, always present, always relentless. There's no shade, no breeze, no mercy. Your skin starts to feel like it's roasting, literally. The calluses on your hands rehydrate with sweat. Your eyes burn from dust and light. And your clothes? At this point, they've fused with your body, soaked, stiff, and reeking. The heat seeps in through your ears, runs down your spine, and settles right where your hope used to live. You glance at the Nile in the distance. It shimmers like a mirage, a blue ribbon of water promising relief. But you know what lives there: parasites, crocodiles, and worse, tax collectors. The mud roofs over the houses trap the heat like ovens. So do the walls and the floors. Even the shadows seem to radiate warmth. The sand, which covers everything, creeps into your clothes, your food between your toes, and occasionally into your soul. You start to understand why so many Egyptian gods are animals who live in the afterlife. It's an upgrade. And this sun, it never lets up. There are no cloudy days. Egypt doesn't do that. There's only one cycle: sunrise, hellfire, sunset, oven off, temporarily. Children learn early to sprint in short bursts, before the sweat melts them. Women wrap wet cloths around their heads, which dry in minutes. Men try shielding their eyes with bits of fabric. It works, for about 2 seconds. And you? You just try not to evaporate. Your body attempts to adapt. Your pores scream. Your neck drips. You're no longer sure if you're sweating or actually melting. Heat stroke isn't a risk. It's a rite of passage. A neighbor collapsed last week. Started acting strange. Talked to a scarab. Called it prophet. Then passed out. He was treated with mud, onions, and desperate prayers. He's better now. Or dead. No one's confirmed. You get home. There's no fan, no ice, not even silence, because the heat makes the walls crack, the people groan, and the dogs howl through the night. You lie on the floor, try to sleep, but it feels like you could burst into flames at any moment. The sun's gone, but it left memories. Your body burns, your thoughts crawl, your patience? That left before noon. In Egypt, the sun is an entity. You don't worship it, you endure it, and you pray, every single day, that it never finds out where you live. Spoiler, it already knows. You get home. What should feel like relief is really just a change of scenery, from the public furnace to your private oven. Your house is a square structure built from sun-dried mud bricks. The roof is flat, perfect for cooking thoughts, feelings, and eggs. Inside, there are no walls. Everything is shared. Space, noise, sweat, complaints, and air thick with domestic life. Your wife is arguing with the neighbor about a chicken, a linen cloth, or maybe something said in 1276 BC that no one ever really got over. Your kids are running, screaming, kicking things, and occasionally biting each other. That's what they call survival-based education. You try to sit in a corner. The only wooden stool in the house is taken by the family cat, who's already scratched you 3 times this week. You give up the seat. He's more respected than you anyway. In the kitchen, which is really just a patch of dirt with a hole, some charcoal, and a pot older than your family name, your mother is heating something. Could be soup, could be porridge, could be soap. You don't ask. Eating in silence is an art. The food arrives. It's hot, liquid, brown. Contains 3 grains, half an onion slice, and, as a bonus, an insect wing. You eat it all. Your mother-in-law complains about the noise. Your wife complains about your mother-in-law. Your oldest son asks why you don't build beautiful pyramids like the other dads. You swallow the answer with the last spoon of soup. The floor is packed dirt. The ceiling drops dust. The walls are cracked from time. And still, it's home. At night, everyone sleeps together, on straw mats, side by side. There's no privacy. Silence only comes when everyone passes out from exhaustion. You hear the village sounds, a donkey whining about life, a child coughing, an old man snoring like he's exorcising demons. Finally, the night breeze arrives. It's warm, but at least it's something. You stare at the ceiling and think, maybe tomorrow will be different. And then think, it won't. Because in ancient Egypt, home isn't a place to rest. It's just where fatigue goes to hide. And if hell ever had a floor plan, it would probably look a lot like this. Night falls. You could rest, but something else is waiting for you. The fear of the gods. In ancient Egypt, religion isn't something you practice. It's something that chases you. The world is ruled by invisible forces that are, clearly, in a bad mood. If the river rises too much, it's punishment. If it doesn't rise, still punishment. If a rat enters your house, it's a bad omen. If it leaves, that just means it left a curse behind. Wake up with back pain. Someone envied your luck. A chicken lays 2 eggs? Interpretation. Either prosperity is coming, or sudden death. Every day is a lottery of signs, warnings, curses, and gods offended for reasons no one really understands. And to protect yourself from all of it, you follow an invisible rule book. It starts with prayers. Whispered words passed down from your grandfather, who heard them from his grandfather, who probably made them up in a moment of panic. You leave offerings, stale bread, dried flowers, a strand of hair, anything that might count as a symbolic gesture to some forgotten deity. Your wife ties a knot in a strip of linen to ward off the evil eye. Your neighbor covers mirrors in mud so spirits won't reflect. And your daughter draws a scarab on the floor with charcoal because she heard it keeps nightmares away. No one knows if any of it works, but no one's willing to risk finding out. You once saw a man get kicked out of the village for sneezing 3 times during an eclipse. A priest said it was a sign of possession. The man swore it was allergies. No one listened. In times like these, fear doesn't need logic. It only needs silence. And so you learn to walk on eggshells. Metaphorical ones, of course. The real ones are too expensive. There are gods for the sun, the river, the dead, the bugs, the shoes, the belly buttons, each with their own demands. Rituals, specific dates. Forget one date, the crops rot. Say the wrong name, locust plague. Blink at the wrong moment during a ceremony, you might come back as a hippo. Egyptian religion is, above all, an exercise in memory, fear, and humility. And you're just a peasant, trying not to become an example. You end your nightly prayer asking for protection from thieves, sickness, snakes, scorpions, sandstorms, ghosts, nightmares, and, if possible, your mother-in-law. You close your eyes and think, let's hope no god is actually listening tonight. Midnight approaches, the house is quiet, or almost. A cricket sings its revenge from the corner of the wall. A baby cries with the lungs of an old man. And you're lying down, but your mind is already in the afterlife. Because here in ancient Egypt, death isn't just a possibility, it's a roommate. A constant shadow. The irony? No one's really afraid of death, because for people like you, it sounds more like rest than tragedy. You spend your days working like an ox, and your nights dreaming of becoming a mummy. The wealthy are buried with gold, perfume, scrolls, board games, scented linen, and even miniature servants. You, on the other hand, well, if you're lucky, you'll be buried in some dry corner of earth, wrapped in a worn-out cloth, holding an onion in your hand. They say it keeps evil spirits away, or maybe it just masks the smell. But none of that really matters, because what truly matters is the judgment. According to belief, when you die, your heart is placed on a scale before the god Anubis. On the other side, a feather. If your heart is lighter than the feather, you enter paradise. If it's heavier, well, it gets devoured by a monster with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the rear end of a hippo. Yeah, someone really thought that through. And just like that, you stop existing. The good news? With the life you've lived, your heart is probably empty of any hope, so it might just be light enough. But that's not all. You also have to recite a long list of phrases called the negative confessions. I did not kill. I did not steal. I did not speak against the gods. I did not throw trash in the Nile. And about 50 more. You memorize them as best you can, whispering them between hoe strikes in the field. Because forgetting one could mean eternal damnation. And let's be honest, you don't want to spend eternity being bitten by giant scarabs while writing papyrus scrolls for some dead pharaoh. In the end, you close your eyes, not with fear, but with a strange hope. Hope that somewhere out there's a world where food is soft, the sun has an off switch, and the gods are too busy to notice you. Death, to you, isn't the end. It's the exit. Because if life in ancient Egypt is a gift, it's the kind of gift that comes wrapped in pretty paper. But inside, there's a rock. And as you wake from the nightmares of the Egyptian desert, the screams of the Roman arena begin to echo, because now you're about to open your eyes in the heart of ancient Rome, where survival isn't an honor, it's a blood sport. Welcome to Rome. Not the Rome of golden emperors, triumphal arches, or perfumed baths. Today you are no one, not a citizen, not a soldier. not even a useful slave. You're a forgotten man, nameless, homeless, without a single coin of dignity in your pocket. Because, let's be honest, you don't even have a pocket. And yet, congratulations. You survived the night. The first victory of the day is opening your eyes and realizing the urine running down the sidewalk isn't yours. At least not all of it. The smell is a refined blend of moldy bread, sour cheap wine, and bodies that stopped moving far too long ago. The ground where you slept is warmer than yesterday. That's not a good sign. In Rome, when the ground's warm, it might mean something's rotting underneath. A woman moans a few steps away. No way to tell if it's from pain, fever, or hunger. Sometimes, it's all three. You sit up, slowly. Your head aches. Your stomach growls. Your tongue feels like it's made of leather. You look around. Rats running. A dead dog with ribs on display. A man urinating against a wall. Tunic pulled down to his knees. This is Rome. Not the Senate's Rome. Not the Rome of bronze eagles. The real Rome. The one that stinks, that bleeds, that survives beneath the sewers, beneath the marble, beneath the heroic tales. Your eyes are still blurry when a group of soldiers marches past. You lower your head. They laugh at you. One spits, but today, none of them steps on you. Miracle number 2. The sun hasn't even properly risen, and you've already survived 2 threats. That's practically a personal best. But don't get excited. The easy part of the day is already over. It's morning. The market stalls haven't started shouting yet. But the flies, oh, they're early risers. Your stomach, that noisy traitor, begs for anything chewable. Not that you have many options. You reach between 2 loose bricks in the wall where you slept, your makeshift nighttime vault, and find a piece of bread. Hard, dry, sour, but it's bread. Next to you, a boy watches. Dirty, thin, hollow-eyed, a ruined neighbor. You break the bread in half, offer him a piece. He takes it without speaking. Because in Rome, manners are a luxury, and gratitude, a waste of energy. You chew slowly, trying not to shatter what's left of your teeth. Down the street, you see a man stumble. Tunic stained with wine, one sandal, grinning like he forgot his own name. A legionary, off duty. He stops, looks at you, sees the food, or rather the insult, a beggar daring to chew. Is that breakfast or divine punishment? He laughs. You smile back. On the inside. On the outside, you just lower your head. He spits on the ground and stumbles off, still cursing. Maybe at a god, maybe at a dog. Across the road, a woman's yelling at a baker, wants bread for less than a sesterce. He offers her a slap instead. Hunger in Rome has a voice. It yells, kicks, claws. You finish chewing, still hungry. And then you remember the wine. A broken jug in an alley with the bottom intact. You already knew it was there. The liquid inside reeks, but it warms your chest. And like everything in Rome, it tastes like blood and dust. Now it's official. The day can begin. Hunger fades, but doesn't disappear. You've got just enough in your stomach not to pass out. Now you need something rarer in Rome than an honest senator. Work. But not just any work. You're not a craftsman, not a soldier, not an apprentice to anyone. You're just a body with legs, a burden with arms. Luckily, or maybe unluckily, there's always one kind of job that never runs out. Collecting human waste from the streets of the Subura. Yes, literally that. You join a few others just like you. 3 men and a woman, all wearing the same expression. The look of people who expect nothing from life, except maybe for the next bucket to be a little less full. You carry wooden shovels, cracked buckets, and cloths tied around your faces, not to block the smell, to try and forget you're human. A child walks past and spits near your feet. A merchant chuckles. Do a good job. Don't leave anything behind, not even your pride. Pride? That was left in the last empire. You crouch down, dig the shovel in, lift slowly. The waist drips like memories, sticky, unwanted, and unavoidable. One of the men mumbles dirty jokes to himself, as if that makes the world feel less ridiculous. The woman says nothing, barely even breathes. She's probably sick. You think about saying something, but realize no one here came for friendship. They came for a sestertius, or half of one. The stench seeps in through your eyes. It burns, the sun is high, the flies are celebrating, and the golden roam up on the hill doesn't even know you exist. Or worse, it does, and doesn't care. You finish the morning with aching arms, burning feet, and a soul as filthy as the rag you used to wipe your sweat. But you earned a few coins, which now will be wasted somewhere even worse. The market. You arrive at the market, and for a second you think you've stepped into an arena. Shouts, shoves, the smell of blood and raw meat. Only here the gladiators are hysterical old women, lying merchants, and live pigs screaming beneath the stalls. A perfect blend of bazaar and purgatory. You try to keep your coins well hidden, because in Rome, showing you have anything is asking to lose it. The first vendor you meet shouts, "Fresh onions! Picked this morning? Want a sniff?" He shoves one in your face. It's soft, blackened in spots. 3 for a sestertius. You laugh. He laughs too. Then he shoves you. You keep walking. You pass a group of women selling medicinal herbs, or what's left of them. Some are real. Others are just dry leaves painted with wine. Up ahead, a fruit stand. Tiny apples cracked open. Figs swarming with nesting flies. You ask for the price. The woman looks you up and down. Too expensive for someone who smells like a dead dog. The market has no laws, only rules. And rule number 1, if you walk in smelling like misery, you leave robbed or beaten. You hear a loud thud. A man's been thrown to the ground. He's bleeding. Tried to steal bread. 3 others kick him calmly, like they're softening clay. No one intervenes. A child steps over him holding a chicken. You spot an old man with a basket of burnt bread. He doesn't say a word, just holds one out. Half a sestertius. You hand him the coin. He smiles, no teeth. For a moment, there's peace. But then a scream pierces the air. Fire! Fire in the back! A stall is burning. Someone dropped a lamp, maybe on purpose. People scatter. Pigs squeal. Chaos takes over. You grip your bread tight and run too. Because in Rome, even when you think you've won, chaos is always there to remind you, you have nothing. You survive the market, still clutching your bread, legs burning from the run. Now, the noise in the air comes from somewhere else. The amphitheater. Not the Colosseum. That's a luxury. But the poor districts have their own arenas, smaller, dirtier, and in a way, more honest. Here, no one pretends it's a grand show. You walk up to a raised area, stone steps where the miserable gather to watch from a distance. No ticket needed, because you don't go in. You just watch from the outside. You just feel the screaming. "Traitor! Kill him! Split him in half!" The shouts come from every direction. People cheering, people selling watered-down wine, people betting things they don't even own. And in the center, 2 men fight. One with a short spear, the other with a net and dagger. Blood hits the ground. The crowd explodes. You don't cheer, you just watch. Because no matter how miserable your life is, today, you're not the man about to die in front of a drunken crowd. An old woman near you twists her ankle on the stairs, falls to the ground. No one helps. A kid snatches part of her tunic and runs. This city is a jungle with no trees. The man with the spear wins, but doesn't kill. He looks to the crowd, waiting for the verdict. Thumbs move, some up, some down. The judge signals, the loser will be spared, for now. The crowd groans in disappointment. You get up. The bread's gone cold. The blood's dried. The stench hasn't changed. But you've understood something. In Rome, living is a gamble. And today, you woke up lucky, or with the gods' indifference. And sometimes, that's the same thing. After the arena, you decide to try your luck with the gods. Not that you believe they're listening, but in Rome, even the faithless still pray. Because when life steps on your neck every day, prayer isn't about belief. It's just a last resort. You walk to the small temple of Mercury, god of thieves, merchants, travelers, and conveniently, those who lie to survive. Perfect. The temple is cracked, dirty, nearly empty. A priest naps in a corner. A cat licks the altar. You step inside, kneel before the crooked statue, and whisper something between a murmur and a sob. Just let me get through today. Just today. Tomorrow. We talk. Silence. You light a candle. A stolen candle, of course. But the old gods are practical. They'd rather have a stolen flame than none at all. A woman enters. She's crying, praying for a sick child. You don't have children, or a roof, maybe not even a tomorrow, so you look at what no one wants to admit. The gods of Rome have no faces. They have statues, names, stories, but faces number because they don't need to look at you, and if they do, it's not a blessing. The priest wakes up, grumbles, says the altar feels cold, says the offerings are few, says the people have lost their faith. You nod silently, because deep down, you know, the gods are tired, or they've moved on. Maybe to some quiet Greek village, maybe to the homes of the rich, among marble columns and jasmine-scented halls. But here, in this cracked temple, with more pigeons than miracles, there's nothing left, only dust, and prayers that will never be answered. You stand, and decide to trust in something more real, your own feet, because night is coming, and night is a whole different kind of hell. The sun slips behind the hills, and with it goes the last illusion of safety. Rome at night isn't a city, it's a beast. Streets that felt alive by day now whisper threats. You walk with hunched shoulders, trying to make your body look smaller, less noticeable. Your bread is gone, your coins, almost. All you carry now is fear, and the hope of finding a place, any place, to lie down. A rat scurries across your path. You lock eyes with a woman standing in an alley. She's filthy, wrapped in rags, but her eyes, sharp, alive. She smiles. You look away. In Rome, a smile in the dark is a warning. Maybe she's a thief, maybe something worse. You turn left and find a group of drunk men slouched against a wall. They're singing, spitting. One holds a knife. You hold your breath and keep walking. If you run, you'll draw attention. If you stare, you'll die. To your right, a dog tears through garbage with rage. It's as thin as you, but it has teeth. Footsteps behind you. You don't look. You turn another corner. The Subura is emptier now, but the silence isn't peace, it's a trap. You find a stone archway between two crumbling buildings. Inside, a small space, scattered with old rags and the sharp sting of piss in the air. Perfect. Your room. You wrap yourself in the cloth. You don't sleep. You close your eyes. But your body stays alert. Because in Rome, those who sleep too deeply end up light on the news. In the distance, a scream. Then another. Someone lost a bet. Or a life. The city doesn't stop. It just changes tone. And in that moment, you thank whatever's listening, silently, for still having a pulse, and no visible wounds. For now, the sky begins to lighten, timid, as if afraid to look down at the city. And you're still here, whole, or almost. Your bones ache like they were beaten. Your stomach growls like a caged dog. But you breathed into one more morning. And in Rome, that's already a miracle. You leave the corner where you slept and see a man being carried by two boys. He wasn't as lucky. He's pale, barefoot, with a deep gash on his forehead. No one reacts, because in Rome, death is ordinary. What really shocks people is survival. You head toward the public fountain. A line of broken bodies has already formed. Some splash water on their faces. Others just wet their lips and swallow hard. An old man beside you laughs. Thought you'd die yesterday? You glance at him, smile. Still might die today. He laughs like it's the best joke in the empire. The city begins to scream again. Horses pass, dragging heavy carts. Children run barefoot. A woman cries. A man gets arrested. You catch the smell of burnt bread from some distant tavern. Your body aches. Your head throbs. But life doesn't ask if you're ready. It shoves, and you go. Because in Rome, no one lives by choice. They live out of stubbornness. They live because they haven't died yet. They live hoping that maybe one day the statues might look down, and the gods, out of boredom or mercy, will point and say, "Not today." And just for that, you begin again. But while the blood of Rome still drips in your thoughts, a cold wind from the north begins to blow. It blows differently, heavier, crueler, because now you're entering the Viking Age, a land where cold isn't your worst enemy, where death gives no warning, and the gods just watch from a distance in silence. You're lying on damp straw, covered by a stiff piece of cloth someone dared to call a blanket. Your feet ache, your hands too. But what really hurts is your chest. It burns, as if the cold lives inside it, as if the frozen air has built a nest between your ribs. You hear heavy breathing. It's the old man in the corner. He's either sleeping or pretending to. In the other corner, a woman sews something, barely able to see. The hearth burns, but gives off more smoke than heat. It doesn't warm, it just pretends to. The house isn't big, but it's big enough that no one has to look each other in the eye. That's how you survive here, in silence. You stand slowly, your knees crack. A boy sleeps near the door, clutching a small axe like a pillow. He's maybe 8, maybe less, but he's already learned. Sleep unarmed, die with your eyes closed. Outside the world is white, white with snow, white with ice, white like the eyes of the dead you've tried to forget. You open the door. A gust of wind bites your neck. The boy wakes, startled, and nearly hits you with the axe. You catch his hand mid-air, firm. He sees it's still you. He doesn't apologize. No one does here. The woman spits on the floor and whispers something in Norse. Maybe a curse, maybe a blessing. Hard to tell. Everything here feels like a mix of what's alive and what's already dead. Outside, the cold claws at your face. But you don't complain. Complaining is for Southerners, for travelers, for soon-to-be corpses. You breathe deep. The air cuts your throat like dry blades, but you're grateful, because the air means you're still here. Still. The cold isn't new. It's always been there, like an old acquaintance, a distant relative you don't like but have learned to endure. The cold doesn't kill you. But hunger. Hunger does. It creeps in slowly. No screaming, no blood, no fear, just decay, like it has tiny teeth, gnawing on your bones from the inside out. You feel it as you bend down to grab a bucket. Your body moves sluggishly, like it's more focused on survival than obedience. The village still sleeps, or pretends to. Few rise before the sun, but the sun here doesn't wake early, and when it does, it's lazy, pale, almost a ghost in the sky. You walk to the communal storehouse, a low structure covered with mud and straw. Inside there should be dried fish, grain, maybe some root vegetables. But today, nothing, just a dead rat, and a cracked wooden spoon. You glance around. No one saw. So, you take the rat. Yes, it's disgusting. But your stomach doesn't care about disgust. It just wants the pain to stop. You carry it to the riverbank. There's a small hole in the ice, kept open by those still clinging to life. You dip the rat into the water, scrub it. Pretend that helps. A woman passes behind you. She sees, says nothing. But you know, Later, someone will talk, and you'll become a story or a joke. It doesn't matter. If you can chew today, you've already won. Back home, you light the fire. The flame is timid, the warmth almost symbolic. But the smell of meat, even the wrong kind, makes the old man in the corner open his eyes. He knows what it is, but says nothing. Just takes a deep breath and closes his eyes again. In the Viking Age, right and wrong are luxuries for full bellies. Here, everything is negotiation, with the gods, with hunger, with your own pride. You chew slowly, tough, dry, tastes like leather and bone. But it's enough. Enough for your body to remember it's still alive. For today. You glance out the small, frost-covered window. A raven lands on the house beam. It stares at you, as if it knows you're next on the list. You blink. It doesn't move, like hunger, like guilt, like everything that doesn't kill you, but waits. Morning smoke still dances between the trees. You walk toward the forge, or what's left of it, not to claim a weapon, but to do your part, the part of someone not born to fight, only to hold up the world while others shatter swords against it. You see the real warriors in the distance, tall, strong, covered in scars and glory that don't belong to you. Their iron gleams, even in the fog. They smell of blood and arrogance. You crouch down, pick up one of their cracked shields. Your job is to fix it, polish it, return it, so it can be broken again, on someone, maybe on you. As you sand down the wood, you hear them talking. We killed 5 yesterday, 4 Saxons, and one who didn't even know where he was. Laughter. One of them points at you. That one there, has he ever held a real axe? Another replies, him? He holds buckets, barely. More laughter. You pretend not to hear. But you hear. And you feel it. Because you have held an axe. Not to kill, to chop firewood, with frozen fingers, and shoulders screaming. You've carried bodies, not of enemies, of friends. Brothers who froze in the night while dreaming of a summer that never came. You run your finger along the shield's edge. It's chipped, but still holds. You wonder what it would be like to carry that shield into battle, in front of them, for them. Would it protect you? Or would you just be one more body between an enemy's blade and a warrior's pride? A woman approaches. She brings more shields, says she wants them all ready before nightfall. You nod, lower your eyes, keep sanding. She doesn't say, thank you. No one does. Because you're not a warrior, you're support, the rope that holds the boat, the wood that burns to warm the hero. And that's fine, except when night comes, and you're alone, with the sound of swords still echoing in your skull. And you wonder, if you died today, would anyone tell the story? Or would they just say there's one less shield ready to go? The afternoon drags on, colorless. In the north, colors are afraid to exist for too long. The sky is a tired gray. The ground, a mosaic of frozen mud, old footprints and trampled hopes. You finish your shift helping reinforce the village wall. Wall? More like a pile of misaligned wood, held up more by shared will than by any real structure. Inside the walls, everything is quiet. Too quiet. You learn quickly that here, silence doesn't mean peace. It means alert. It's as if every house is whispering to the others, stay still. Pretend you're empty. You pass the home of the local chieftain. You don't make eye contact. You don't even think his name. He's inside, they say, eating something better, sleeping on bear fur, planning the next raid or the next punishment. You pick up the pace. Last time someone stumbled near his door, well, no one talks about it. Not because it's forbidden, because it's pointless. Back at your cabin, the smoke from the day still hangs in the air. You open the door, and it swallows you, like the house itself wants you gone. The woman is sitting just as before. The old man doesn't move. The boy, the one who sleeps with an axe as a pillow, is now sharpening the blade. No talking, no smiling, No childhood. You sit down and realize you can't remember the last time you heard a real laugh. Here, laughing is like yelling into the forest. Something hears, and something comes. So everyone learns to stay quiet, to make silence a shield, even when it freezes you from the inside out. You try to remember your voice, what it used to sound like. Was it deep, soft? Was it even yours? But it got lost, in the days that all feel the same, in the nights carved by wind and fear. The boy offers you his axe, not out of kindness, but as a test. You take it. He watches. For a moment it seems like he wants you to say something, but you don't. You simply hand it back. He nods, goes back to sharpening. The silence stays, and you understand, with a chill that isn't from the cold. Here, survival means disappearing slowly, until not even the wind remembers your name. Night has fallen, and with it, the gods descend too, not in majesty, not with golden light or celestial trumpets. They fall with the cold, with the nightmares, with the distant sound of someone screaming and being ignored. In the center of the village, the fire has already been lit, not for warmth, for judgment. You walk there with the others, not because you want to, but because here, not showing up means you might be next. They say a man stole bread, a small piece, for his sick daughter. They also say it doesn't matter, because the bread belonged to the chieftain, and the chieftain doesn't like being disobeyed. The accused kneels. His eyes already know the verdict, even before the accusation is spoken. Someone yells, "The gods are watching." Another spits and mutters, "The gods don't care." A third simply stares, eyes dull, not with indifference, but with familiarity. The punishment is spoken softly. It doesn't need to be loud. Everyone already knew. He will be branded, on the back. So the pain lasts. So the shame does too. You watch, like all the others. No reaction, no blinking. The daughter cries. The mother hushes her, because even crying can be seen as defiance. The man screams, once, then just smoke. You smell burned flesh. The same scent from when they roasted the pig at the last feast, the pig you didn't get to eat. Someone beside you whispers, "The gods demand justice." But here, justice has an owner, a name, and a seat in the big house. You think, if you stole bread, who would it be for? Maybe the old man who no longer stands. Maybe the woman who now stares into the fire like it might say something. Maybe for yourself. Because the hunger never left. It just adapted. The crowd disperses, wordless, as if this was just another task on the daily list. You walk back to the house, but before that, you look up at the sky, clear, starry, but it doesn't look beautiful. It looks indifferent. And you understand. Here, the gods don't judge. They just watch, like ravens on high branches. The night deepens, and you, against all odds, fall asleep. Not from comfort, but from exhaustion. Your body simply shuts off, like a fire that dies on its own. And in your dream, you are someone. You have a strong name. You hold an axe, not to obey, but to lead. You're on a ship. The sea glows. The others follow you. They sing, they laugh. You are respected, feared, whole. But then a sound, a beating of wings, dry, sharp. You jolt awake, lying on straw, in the dark. Outside, the sound returns. Thump, thump, thump. Crows. You step outside, still dizzy, and you see them, 3, perched on the crooked branch above the house, still, watching you. You wonder what they know. Because here, crows aren't just birds. They belong to something, to someone. They say they carry messages, that they're the eyes of Odin, that they announce death. But what are they announcing now? You go back inside. But you don't sleep again. You stare at the ceiling, at the cracks, at the boy in the corner, sleeping with an axe clutched like a blanket. You think of the dream, of that version of yourself, strong, a leader. And you compare it to this quiet, dirty, invisible existence. You wonder, what if the dream was the real life, and this frozen hell is the nightmare? Maybe, while you live here, your soul is somewhere better, or on a ship that sank, or in a battle you never got to win. Or maybe the crows know, and that's why they don't stop watching. You cover your ears, but you still hear wings, even if they're no longer flapping. The cold reaches you, but it's not the worst part anymore, because what truly freezes you inside is the doubt. What if you already died, and just forgot to lie down? You wake without knowing if you actually slept, or just blacked out with your eyes open. But the sun, or what the North calls sun, appears behind the clouds, gray, faded, like a god who's lost faith in his own followers. And today they say, it's hunting day, not for sport. No one here enjoys anything. You're leaving the village, not out of bravery, because someone told you to. A knock at the door, with the blunt end of an axe. It's the boy, the same one, always more serious than the winter. He doesn't ask if you're ready, he just expects that you are. You grab a crude spear, made by your own hands, half crooked, half useless. The group gathers, 4 men, you, and the boy. You walk in silence. The forest doesn't feel like a forest. It feels like a graveyard standing upright. The trees are bare, covered in moss, their branches like fingers trying to grab anyone who passes. You step on something soft. You don't look. You've learned. Look too much, remember too much, and remembering hurts. The sound of your steps echoes through the leaves, but there's something else. Lighter, rhythmic. Branches snap behind you or beside you. You whisper. No one replies. You speak louder. Someone gestures. Silence. The boy stops, raises his hand, clenches his fist. Everyone freezes. Even the air seems to hold its breath. 1 second, 2, nothing. Then screams. Not animals. Men. Then silence. Again. 2 of the men bolt. They don't look back. You grip your spear with both hands. The boy does too. You're not protecting each other, but you're not enemies either. Same side, different worlds. The sound returns. You can't tell what it is, but it's coming. The boy runs. You hesitate. Then run too. Because here, running isn't cowardice. It's survival. You reach the riverbank, leap across stones, slip in the mud. You fall. The boy stops. For a moment, you think he's going to help you. But he just watches, then keeps going. You get up, blood on your leg, pain in your arm, but you're still alive. You return to the village alone, no prey, no glory. The chieftain stares at you, says nothing, because here, no one demands explanations, only survival. And that, you still have. Barely. You're back in the village. But you're not sure if you came back whole. Your legs ache. Your arm is bruised. Your head is full of questions no one here dares to ask aloud. You walk past the others. They look, but they don't ask. Because here, surviving isn't news. It's just statistics. You step into the house. The old man is still in the corner. The woman still doesn't speak. The boy is still sharpening. You sit down and feel the weight of having made it back. But not in the way you hoped. You thought surviving one more day would make you stronger, but it just made you feel emptier. The boy's axe is sharper now. He tests the blade on his finger. It bleeds. He smiles. And you realize he's not fearless. He's just already dead inside, like everyone here. Outside, the crows are back. 2 this time, watching you, and you watch them back. A woman walks by, glances in, sees you, then lowers her gaze. Not out of respect, out of pity, or maybe anticipation. After all, everyone here waits their turn to vanish into the forest, their turn to fall to the cold, their turn to disappear without a name. You lie down, look at the ceiling again, but now it feels lower, closer, like it's pressing you down into the earth. You close your eyes. and you hear the wind, but you're not sure if it's really wind or the breath of something that hasn't taken you yet. Maybe you'll wake up tomorrow, maybe you won't, but it doesn't matter, because in the end, the cold was never the worst enemy. The worst was surviving. As the last Viking flame fades on the frozen horizon, a new silence takes its place, heavier, still, but no less cruel. The mist is different now. It comes from the east, slow, disciplined, silent. Your feet no longer sink into the northern mud, but press gently into the damp moss of an abandoned temple, hidden among bamboo groves and memories no one dares recall. There are no axes here, only blades, and these are turned inward. You're about to step into a place where the worst kind of death is staying alive. The wood beneath your body creaks, like an old man who refuses to forgive. The ceiling, the same one you stared at as a young apprentice, now feels lower, tighter, as if the gods themselves were trying to crush you back into the earth. You open your eyes. There's no direct light, only the diffuse glow slipping through the cracks of the shoji. The scent of burning incense mixes with old mold and the mist that crawls along the temple walls. You're in the temple, but you don't know how you returned. Or rather, you do. You were meant to stay there, to fall on the mission, or at the very least, to do what every true warrior would have done. But the blade never came down. You hesitated. The blade was ready, the white cloth folded, the warm water beside you. Everything was prepared for death to hold more honor than life. But in that final moment, you trembled. You didn't have the courage. Or maybe you had the courage to live. And now you're here, breathing, weak, ashamed, existing between two worlds, the living and those remembered in glory. You sit up and everything aches. But it's not your body. It's a different pain, harder to explain, harder to carry. You walk to the veranda. Outside, the garden is silent. The mist dances between the stones. The pond is still. No birds, no frogs, just the sound of time moving. Without you. You hear no footsteps, but you know. They know. They know you returned. They know you failed. They know you're alive, when you shouldn't be. And in feudal Japan, a life without honor is heavier than death itself. You look at your hands. They still tremble, but not from fear. They tremble because they no longer know what to do. They were trained to fight, to serve, to cut. Now, they only know how to weigh. You are alive, but everything around you is mourning. And the mourning is not for someone who died. It's for you, for still existing. The temple is awake. You hear the light footsteps of other warriors moving through the wooden corridors. Sliding doors open and close. Bowls of rice are placed with their usual precision. The sharp clack of bamboo against stone signals the start of daily duties. Nothing has changed. Except for one thing. You came back. And now, even though no one says a word, everything is different. You enter the common hall. You know exactly where you used to sit, to the left of the central pillar. But today, the space feels smaller. The distance between you and the others stretches like a battlefield. You sit. The silence weighs heavier than any armor. No one stops you from being there. But no one acknowledges it either. They look at you and pretend they didn't. You catch it when one apprentice briefly meets your gaze. Too fast, like eye contact with you breaks discipline, like you're a ghost. The young monk serving rice hesitates as he approaches. For a moment you think he'll skip your bowl, but he sets it down, without looking at you, as if the gesture was a mistake, or a punishment. You hear conversations, whispers, muted laughter. But you can't make out the words. Maybe they're talking about something else. Maybe they're talking about you. It doesn't matter. You're no longer one of them. The sharpest pain doesn't come from the sword, but from the absence of voice. You walk to the courtyard. Outside, the younger warriors are training with Bakkens, repeating the same sequences you once taught. Now, watching them perform those cuts, you realize every movement is a memory you can't touch anymore. At a distance, your master appears. He's older, stricter, still commanding. You bow as tradition demands. He stops, looks you over, and walks on. No words, no nod, no acknowledgement, nothing. That was your sentence, unspoken, but clear, like polished steel. You're still here, but you've already been erased. The days passed, or maybe they didn't. Here, time moves like mist, still, thick, impossible to push through. You sweep the courtyard with the same hands that once gripped a katana. Now, the wooden handle of the broom feels too light, almost fragile, as if refusing to acknowledge what you once were. Each morning, your body bends for the same tasks. Clean the altar, chop wood, carry water, all with precision, all in silence. But no matter how much you clean, the temple stays stained with your presence. The ashes on the altar seem to return the moment you step away. The dirt comes back. The dust comes back. Everything returns, except what you lost. You pass through the narrow corridors and hear the sutras being recited. The voices are calm, measured, steady, but you don't recite. You're not invited to. You only listen, like a stranger, like an intruder. In your room, the old bronze mirror still rests in the same corner it did when you were just a student. You stare into it, and don't recognize the face. Thinner, more hollow-eyed. But that's not what haunts you. It's the eyes. You used to have a warrior's gaze, steady, sharp, impenetrable. The eyes of a man who lived to serve and would die without question. Now, you see doubt. A man caught between two paths that no longer exist. Not warrior, not monk, not dead, not alive. You reach out and touch the reflection. The surface ripples, not from magic, but from your own hand. Unsteady, ashamed, unsure. Outside, the bells ring. Not a call to prayer, just a mark of the hour. Another cruel reminder that time moves on. And you are still here. Not even the silence of the temple welcomes you. It only magnifies your thoughts. And in those thoughts, shame doesn't scream. It whispers, constantly, behind every word left unspoken, between every glance that turns away, in every step that echoes alone. You once believed that surviving would be your punishment, but survival is just the beginning. The true punishment is hearing yourself, thinking, remembering. Shame doesn't need to shout. It only needs you to keep existing. That morning, the sound is different. You wake before the bell, before the footsteps, before the light. There's a feeling, the kind you learn to trust in battle. Not fear, not hope, just movement. When you slide open your door, a messenger is waiting. Young, steady eyes, arms crossed, no greetings, no hesitation. He simply says, "There's a scroll waiting for you at the elder's altar. It's a mission." You freeze for a moment. A mission? For you? Every part of your body rejects the idea, but something inside flickers, a dying ember, a memory of who you used to be. At the altar, the scroll sits atop a folded piece of white linen, sealed in red wax, the mark of the order. Your fingers tremble as they untie the knot. Inside, calm words, and final ones. A village to the south has sent for aid. Their fields have been taken by bandits. The monks there are cornered. We send you, not as a warrior, but as a bridge between two worlds that no longer listen to each other. Bring peace, or bring justice. The choice is yours. You close the scroll, a chance, or a test, or a trap, maybe all three. You leave at dusk. No blessings, no farewells, just the sound of wood beneath your feet. The same sound the temple heard the day you returned, in disgrace. But now, every step feels heavier and more certain. Your katana is packed, not out of pride, but instinct. The path is long, dark forests, open fields, silence, and the constant company of your own judgment. You walk and walk, as if each step might turn back time. But time does not turn. It does not forgive. It does not forget. You walk with it, and hope that somewhere at the end of the road, there's something that makes all of this mean something, or at least an ending worth carrying. You arrived at the village at dusk. The sky was clear, but the air heavy, as if something hung between the world of the living and the world of the dead. The houses stood in rows, simple, lined up like silent soldiers. The windows shut, the doors half open. No one came to greet you, no curious faces, no monks in quiet prayer, no children running with buckets of water. The village did not feel alive. You walked between the huts. You could feel the eyes behind the cracks, eyes that judged, eyes that remembered. You called out, softly. You offered help. You offered to listen. Nothing. Then an old man appeared, leaning on a crooked staff, his beard like dried moss. He stopped in front of you. "You came to save us?" he asked, his voice brittle, like dry leaves being stepped on. You nodded, but he smiled, not with joy, with pity. "There's nothing left to save," he said. You wanted to ask more. But something in his tone shut the door to questions. He pointed to a dirt trail winding into the mountains. They came, took from us, came back, took more, but they always left something behind. Fear. That they left in everyone. You followed him to the village temple. The altar was still standing, but the prayers once carved into the walls had been ripped down, replaced by markings, carved with knives, symbols you didn't recognize and didn't want to. At the center, a bowl of rotted rice, an offering, forgotten. And there, standing in the middle of that sacred neglect, you realized something. There were no bandits, no battle left to fight, only the echo of something old, something unspoken, something unhealed. No one here had the strength to name it, let alone cast it out. The enemy was gone, but it had left behind fear, silence, collapse. And now they expected you to do something. But what? Fight what? Save whom? Punish who? You saw a boy hiding behind a curtain of straw. He didn't run, just stared, as if you were like the others, the ones who come and go, leaving everything the same. You stepped outside the temple, and for the first time, you understood. This mission wasn't meant to heal a village. It was meant to test whether you still had a place in the world, but this world had erased its place for people like you. That night, you slept on the cold temple floor. No futon, no prayer, only the sound of wood groaning beneath your weight, and the wind snoring through the cracks in the roof. But it wasn't the cold that stole your sleep. It was the doubt. You had been sent on a mission. But there was no mission. There was abandonment, fear, and memory. You thought about leaving, simply writing a report. No bandits, no combat, village in apparent peace. It would have been true, or a convenient part of it. But something in that village held you still. Not the silence, but what it hid. You spent the next days observing, helping carry water, chop wood, repair rooftops, simple things, things you'd never done before as a soldier. But the people didn't smile, didn't thank you. They simply accepted. And somehow, that hurt more than any blade. You realized they weren't expecting you to save the village. They had already accepted their fate. The emptiness, the surrender. But for some reason, you hadn't. You gathered a small group. 3 older men, a mute woman, 2 children. You taught them how to braid stronger rope, how to hide food beneath stones, how to build fire without smoke. No one said a word, but no one walked away either. One morning, the boy, the one behind the curtain of straw, approached, timid, dirty, holding a piece of bamboo. He held it out, like a sword. and you took it, as if it were. For a brief moment, you saw something in his eyes you hadn't seen in a long time. Expectation, trust, not in you, but in the possibility of change. You were no longer a warrior, not a monk, not a messenger of salvation. You were simply someone who stayed. And in that place, that was already more than anyone else had done. You would not be remembered for victories, nor for losses, but maybe for presence. And in feudal Japan, that sometimes was the most revolutionary act a man could offer. Weeks passed, and the village, though still quiet, began to shift its rhythm. The old man offered you tea. The children followed you to the temple. Even the dogs, once wary, now slept near where you rested. It wasn't redemption, but it was coexistence. Then a messenger arrived, riding a horse coated in dust. He handed you a scroll. The words were brief, unadorned. Mission complete. Return. The temple needs you. You closed your eyes, not out of reverence, but because, in that moment, you understood something simple. They didn't know what had happened here, and maybe they never cared to. You looked at the boy, playing with a stick, shaping it into an imaginary bow, and for a second, you wished no one would ever know you were here. That this gesture, your decision to stay, would be like the wind, felt but unseen. That night, you walked to the top of the hill. You brought your sword, but not to wield it. You buried it, with your hands. No ceremony, no witness. You covered it with stones, and placed the bamboo stick the boy had given you on top. There it remained, a symbol of a man who had failed, but chose not to run from his own shadow. You descended the hill, and felt the weight of your past stay behind, not as punishment, but as a part of you, of your story, one that could now continue. The next day, the village watched you leave. No one waved, no one cried, but there were eyes at the doors, and for the first time, those eyes didn't fear you. They understood. You left in silence, as you had arrived. But something inside had changed. You might never be remembered for great deeds, but one who endured the weight of shame and still chose to remain had done more than most heroes ever will. You returned to the temple, as ordered. The red curtains still danced in the wind. The scent of incense was the same, but you were not. The other monks greeted you, with reverence, but without questions. They saw the man who had come back, not the one who had left a part of himself in a forgotten village. You resumed your routine, the prayers, the rituals, the tasks, but everything now felt less urgent, less absolute. One afternoon, while sweeping the stone steps of the sanctuary, you heard a single leaf fall. That was it. A leaf. But in the delicate sound of its landing, you felt something stronger than any order. Peace. Not the peace of those who have conquered, but the peace of those who have stopped running. A few days later, a letter arrived. No signature, just a drawing, a bamboo twig, and a small sword buried in the earth. You smiled, a quiet smile, the kind of smile that understands you don't need to be remembered to have made a difference. That night, you lit one extra candle at the altar. No one asked why, but for the first time in a long while, you slept without your thoughts screaming back at you. The shame hadn't vanished, but now, it no longer spoke alone. It shared space with something new: discretion, service, humanity. You closed your eyes, and before sleep took you, you thought, dying with honor is sometimes easy. The hard part is continuing to live with it. And in that moment, the temple, the village, the past and the present all became just the silence of night. A silence you could finally call home. And now that the last story has ended, it's strange, isn't it? How the past can feel so distant and yet so familiar. 4 different eras, 4 lives, 4 quiet ways of fighting, and surviving. In the suffocating heat of Egypt, in the dried blood of Rome, in the cutting winds of the north, and in the deadly stillness of Japan's temples, you were there. You felt the fear, the shame, the hunger, and above all, the loneliness. Falling asleep after all this might seem hard, but maybe, just maybe, there's comfort in knowing that, by comparison, your pillow isn't made of sweaty straw and no blade is pointed at your back. Maybe tonight, you don't have to run from rats or whips or bored gods or merciless lords or silences that punish more than words ever could. Maybe all you need to do is let your mind quiet down and allow the weight of these stories to melt into your own dreams. And if, by chance, you ever wish to wander again through these forgotten centuries, other stories await you, but only when you're ready. Good night, and sleep while you still can.